In 1977, a young female police officer serving in a small coastal California town vanished without a trace during her routine night patrol. For years, everyone assumed she had simply deserted her post and fled, until 13 years later, in 1990, a fisherman made a shocking discovery at the base of a remote cliff. Her heavily rusted patrol car, emerging from the waves, held clues that revealed the horrifying truth of that night. On the morning of that March day in 1990, a thick fog blanketed Bayview, California, enveloping the coastal cliffs like a shroud. Sergeant Ethan Hayes had just poured himself a second cup of coffee at home when his radio suddenly crackled to life. Unit 23. Unit 23. This is dispatch. We have a 10 to 54 at Devil's Gulch. Fishermen reporting a possible police vehicle at the base of the cliff. Immediate response required. Ethan's hand froze halfway to his toast. Devil's Gulch was a treacherous stretch of Highway 101 where the Pacific Ocean met sheer cliffs. He had driven that route countless times in his 20 years on the force. But something about this call made his heart clench. Dispatch, this is Unit 23. Hayes en route. ETA 10 minutes. He grabbed his jacket and headed for his patrol car, leaving his coffee on the counter. As he pulled out of his driveway, his radio crackled again. Ethan, it's Olivia. Detective Olivia Carter's voice was tense and urgent. I'm already on my way. Helicopter dispatched. Meet me at the North Overlook. Copy that. What are we looking at? The fisherman says it's definitely one of ours. Old model, heavily damaged. Ethan, she paused. Dispatch ran a preliminary check on missing patrol cars in the area. Only one listed in the last 20 years. Ethan's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. She didn't need to say the name. Abigail, his wife. Vanished 13 years ago, her patrol car gone without a trace during a routine night shift in 1977. The drive to Devil's Gulch took exactly 9 minutes and 37 seconds. Ethan knew because he counted every second, his mind racing through memories he had tried to bury. Abigail in her crisp blue uniform, her badge gleaming as she kissed him goodbye that last evening. The strained smile as she promised to be careful. The empty bed that awaited her return. The overlook was already crowded with patrol cars when he arrived, their red and blue lights painting the fog in surreal hues. Yellow tape cordoned off the cliff edge, where a group of officers peered down at the rocky shoreline below. Ethan spotted Olivia immediately, her dark hair pulled back in her signature bun, her detective's badge prominently displayed on her belt. Ethan. She turned as he approached, her brown eyes filled with sympathy. You should prepare yourself. The coroner's been called. He nodded curtly and squeezed his way to the cliff edge. Below, barely discernible through the morning haze, lay the mangled remains of a patrol car. Even from that height, he could clearly make out the corrosion, like a relentless disease eating away at the metal, and how the roof had collapsed under the assault of years of underwater currents and relentless waves. The distinctive thrum of helicopter blades heralded the arrival of the recovery team. Ethan watched as the Coast Guard chopper descended, its crew preparing heavy cables to hoist the mangled remains. Nearby stood the fisherman who had made the discovery, an elderly man in his 60s, clad in faded overalls and rubber boots. Did you find her? Ethan asked. The man nodded, visibly shaken. I've been fishing these waters for 30 years. That car wasn't there last week. I can tell you that. The storm 2 nights ago must have dislodged it. And when the sun hit that chrome bumper this morning. He shook his head. I knew right away something was wrong. You did the right thing reporting it, Olivia said, joining them. Can you tell us exactly what you saw? As the fisherman recounted his discovery, Ethan watched the helicopter crew at work. They rappelled down the sheer cliff face with practiced efficiency, attaching heavy cables to the car's frame. The process was meticulous and required extreme caution. One wrong move could send valuable evidence plummeting into the bottomless abyss of the Pacific. Hoisting, the radio announced. The assembled officers fell silent as the cables tightened. Slowly, almost impossibly, the rusted hulk began to rise. Water streamed from its shattered windows like tears, and chunks of rust and debris rained down onto the rocks below. Ethan held his breath as the car cleared the cliff edge and was carefully guided onto a cleared staging area. Up close, the scene of destruction was even more extensive. The patrol car, a 1975 Plymouth Fury, the same model Abigail had driven, was barely recognizable. The ocean had shown it no mercy. Corrosion had eaten away entire sections of the body, and barnacles encrusted the underside like armor. The forensic team immediately went to work, meticulously photographing every angle of the vehicle before beginning a detailed examination. Ethan forced himself to step back, to give them space, though every instinct screamed at him to tear open the doors and search for answers himself. The license plate is still partially legible. One of the technicians called out. Running it now. Olivia's hand rested on Ethan's shoulder. You don't have to be here. Yes, I do. The technician with the laptop looked up, his face grim. The VIN matches. It's Officer Abigail Hayes' patrol car. The words hit Ethan like a physical blow, though he had felt it in every fiber of his being, from the moment he heard the call. 13 years of uncertainty, of agonizing speculation that she had abandoned him, her job, everything, all of it now gone. Now, there was irrefutable proof that something terrible had happened that night. Opening the driver's side door, the lead forensic expert announced. He pulled, and the door detached completely, its hinges rusted through. The interior was a cavern of shadows and decay. The seats had rotted down to their springs, the dashboard a solid mass of corrosion. No signs of remains, a technician reported, and Ethan exhaled, not realizing he had been holding his breath. Whether it was relief or disappointment, he couldn't say. The search continued methodically, piece by piece. Personal effects emerged like artifacts from an ancient tomb. A flashlight, its batteries long since corroded and leaked. A ticket book, its pages fused into a solid block. And then, from beneath the driver's seat, a brass casing emerged. .40 caliber, the technician stated, holding it up. Same as a service weapon. Blood. Another technician called from the back of the car. Decomposed, but definitely blood under the back seat. And he opened the trunk, shining his flashlight into its rusty interior. Significant traces in the trunk. A new voice cut sharply through the silence. What in God's name is going on here? Walter Thompson, the department chief, strode through the crime scene tape as if he owned the place, which, Ethan thought, in a way, he did. Thompson had been Abigail's chief back in 1977. Now in his late 50s, he had put on weight but still carried the authoritative air of a man accustomed to unquestioning obedience and who brooked no argument. Walter, Olivia said. We've confirmed it's Abigail Hayes' car. Thompson's face cycled through several expressions before settling on official concern. My God, after all this time. He looked at Ethan. You shouldn't be here. I'm fine. Blood and a casing, the lead forensic expert summarized. No dash cam found, likely destroyed by saltwater, but this is definitely a crime scene. Thompson rubbed his jaw. Well, let's not jump to conclusions. That blood could be anyone's. For all we know, Abigail could have. He paused, choosing his words carefully. She could have been involved in something that went wrong. Shot someone, panicked, ditched the car. That's not Abigail, Ethan said evenly. She wouldn't do that. 13 years is a long time, Ethan. People aren't always who we think they are. Thompson's tone was sympathetic but firm. We'll conduct a thorough investigation. No assumptions. Olivia interjected before Ethan could respond. We'll need DNA testing on the blood samples. It's new tech. Expensive, but get it done. Thompson said, this is a potential homicide. We won't spare any expense. He surveyed the scene. The media will be all over this. We need a statement. As if on cue, the first news van appeared on the horizon, quickly followed by two more. Within minutes, reporters were setting up their equipment behind the police tape. Their cameras were focused on the rusted patrol car. Ethan found himself in front of the cameras before he fully registered what was happening. Reporters thrust microphones at him like weapons. Sergeant Hayes, what's it like to finally get answers about your wife's disappearance? Is it true Officer Hayes was under investigation before she vanished? Do you believe she was murdered? Ethan straightened his shoulders and looked directly into the nearest camera. Officer Abigail Hayes was a dedicated officer of this department. She had just been promoted to patrol sergeant when she disappeared in 1977. She was hardworking, honest, and committed to serving this community. We will conduct a thorough and professional investigation into this discovery, and we will find out what happened to her. Nature has finally given us this evidence, and we will not squander this opportunity. More questions were thrown at him, but Olivia gently steered him away from the cameras. Behind them, the forensic team continued their methodical work. Every piece of evidence was meticulously cataloged and preserved. You handled it well, Olivia said as they walked toward their cars. Go home, Ethan. Get some rest. Thompson appeared beside Ethan. She's right. You're too close to this. Take a few days. Let us handle the investigation. I can work this case. No, you can't. Thompson's tone brooked no argument. You're emotionally involved. Your judgment is compromised. It's not an insult. It's a fact. Olivia nodded reluctantly. I'll take this personally. I'll work with the team. I'll keep you updated every step of the way. Ethan, you can trust me. Ethan looked at them, then back at the rusted hulk of Abigail's patrol car. After 13 years, answers were finally within reach. But they were right. He was too close, too raw. I have copies of the original case files at home, he said at last. I'll review them. See if we missed anything. Good, Thompson said, visibly relieved. Just don't play lone wolf detective. Olivia walked Ethan to his patrol car. I'm heading back to the precinct. I'll pull all the records, the 1977 duty logs, schedules, everything. We'll figure this out. Someone killed her, Olivia. The words came out in a rush. All these years, people said she ran away, abandoned her post, but someone killed her. We don't know that yet. Blood in the trunk, a casing. What else could it be? Olivia's expression was sympathetic but professional. We follow the evidence. That's all we can do. Ethan got into his patrol car and started the engine. In his rearview mirror, he could see the forensic team still at work. The rusted remnants of the past had finally been brought to light. He put the car in gear and drove home. His thoughts were already racing through the dusty files waiting in his study, searching for the clue they had missed 13 years ago. Ethan's house stood silent under the afternoon sun, a modest two-story home in a Bayview neighborhood where police officers and teachers lived side by side. He pushed open the front door and went straight to his home office, not bothering to take off his jacket. A box sat on the top shelf of his closet, exactly where he had placed it 5 years ago during his last review. Brown cardboard. A. Hayes, 1977, scrawled casually in black marker on the side. He pulled it down and sat on the office floor, spreading the contents around him like pieces of a puzzle he could never solve. A photograph of Abigail looked up at him from her personnel file. Blonde hair styled in the late 70s fashion, blue eyes shining with pride, fresh sergeant stripes on her uniform. She was 28 when it was taken, just 2 weeks before her disappearance. He picked up copies of the duty log, tracing his finger over the entries for November 18, 1977. Abigail's handwriting, neat and precise. 8:00 p.m., patrol start, Sector 7. Then, 15 minutes later, 8:15 p.m., routine traffic stop, Highway 101, mile marker 42. Warning issued. After that, nothing. No distress call, no report of suspicious activity, no request for backup, just silence. Ethan reviewed the witness statements, all 3 of them. Her partner that night, Officer Jennifer Davis, gave a brief statement. Last saw Officer Hayes at 8 p.m. when she departed for solo patrol. She seemed in good spirits, mentioned wanting to finish early to catch a late movie on TV. The other 2 statements were from civilians who had seen a patrol car that night but couldn't confirm it was Abigail's. Scant. Frustratingly little. He leaned back against the wall, staring at the papers scattered across the carpet. Abigail couldn't have simply driven her patrol car off Devil's Gulch. The logistics alone made it impossible. How would she have escaped then? Someone else had to be involved. His gaze fell on the duty roster. Jennifer Davis was Abigail's partner, but at the bottom of the duty log page was another name, Deputy Thomas Miller, the night shift supervisor. He had signed off on the log entries, verifying their accuracy. Ethan grabbed his phone and dialed Olivia. She answered on the second ring. Ethan, I'm almost back at the precinct. Walter's already there. The rest of the team is still processing the scene. I need you to ask about Thomas Miller. He signed the duty log the night Abigail disappeared. Miller? He transferred to San Mateo County about 8 years ago. What about him? I want to talk to him. Can you get his current contact information when you get to the precinct? Sure. Are you coming in? Already on my way. Ethan gathered the files back into the box and stood. The house was too quiet, too many ghosts. He needed to move, to do something. Instead of driving directly to the precinct, he turned onto Highway 101, heading south towards Abigail's old patrol sector. 20 minutes later, he pulled over at mile marker 42, the site of her last recorded traffic stop. The area hadn't changed much in 13 years. Scrub brush and coastal grasses bent under the constant wind. The Pacific stretched out, a gray-blue expanse to the west. To the east, he could see the old industrial docks in Monterey Bay. Their corrugated metal buildings were rusty and weathered. They had searched there in 1977, found nothing. Why was Abigail out here alone? Standard procedure called for 2 officer patrols after dark, especially in isolated areas. He was about to get back in his car when he heard the approaching rumble of another patrol vehicle. A black and white patrol car slowed as it passed, then pulled to a stop. The driver's side window rolled down, and Ethan saw a face he hadn't seen in years. "Ethan Hayes. Is that you?" Thomas Miller had aged well, his hair now graying, but his face still lean and alert. He wore the San Mateo County Sheriff's deputy uniform with the easy confidence of a veteran. "Thomas, what a coincidence. I was just thinking about you." "Yeah, heard about this morning. They really found Laura's car." Thomas's expression was sympathetic but wary. "At Devil's Gulch. I was just checking her old patrol route." Thomas nodded slowly. "Terrible, after all this time." He glanced at his watch. "Look, I'd love to chat, but I'm running late for my shift. Actually, I wanted to ask you about the duty log that night. You signed it." Something flickered in Thomas's eyes. "That was 13 years ago, Ethan. But yeah, I remember signing it. Everything was in order, same as always." He put the car in gear. "You know what? Let's grab coffee sometime soon. Talk about old times. I'm patrolling the Glenwood area near Central Park today. Give me a call at the precinct." "Will do." Thomas gave a short wave and drove off, his patrol car disappearing around the coastal bend. Back in his car, he turned on the radio, tuning into a news report, a replay of his morning interview. Officer Laura Hayes was a dedicated officer of this department. She had just been promoted to patrol sergeant when she disappeared in 1977. She was hardworking, honest, and committed to serving this community. His own words echoed back at him, and suddenly a cold thought struck him. Laura had recently been promoted, young, a woman, ambitious in a department dominated by old guard policemen. He'd been on the force long enough to know how brutal politics could be, how some officers resented change, resented newcomers rising too fast. He tried to push the thought away. These were his brothers and sisters in arms, people he trusted his life with. But the questions remained. Why was Laura out there alone that night? Who assigned her to such an isolated patrol route? Ethan pressed harder on the gas pedal. He needed answers, and he was going to find them. The Bayview Police Department parking lot was half empty when Ethan pulled in. It was an hour before the day shift change. He reached for the door handle when his eye caught a movement. Walter Thompson was pacing along the side of the building, a cell phone pressed to his ear. Even from 50 feet away, Ethan could see the tension in his chief's body language. Walter walked back and forth in short, agitated strides, his free hand gesturing sharply. Then his voice rose, carrying across the parking lot. "The truck's here. Your job, move it now." Ethan froze, his hand still on the door handle. Walter's tone was urgent, almost desperate. He quietly exited his patrol car, closing the door with a soft click. Walter must have sensed the movement, because he spun around abruptly, his eyes widening when he saw Ethan. The surprise on his face quickly shifted to something else. Uncertainty? Fear? He immediately lowered his voice, mumbled something into the phone before ending the call. "Ethan," Walter called out, forcing a smile. "What are you doing here? I thought I told you to take the day off." Ethan approached, trying to keep his expression neutral. Couldn't stay away. "Was that about Laura's case?" "What?" "Oh, the call." Walter shoved his phone into his pocket. Yeah, it was. "Oh, the sheriff's evidence yard. They're giving me grief about moving the car. You know how it is. That vehicle's been in saltwater for 13 years. It's an environmental hazard now. EPA regulations and all that. They want it moved to their specialized storage facility as soon as possible. But the transport companies are dragging their feet." He chuckled, but it sounded strained. "Had to light a fire under them." "Your job," I said. "Move it now before the county inspectors start breathing down our necks." It made sense. Ethan had dealt with evidence transport before. Knew how complicated it could be with hazardous materials. Bureaucracy never sleeps, huh? Tell me about it. Walter wiped his brow, despite the cool March air. "Come on inside." They walked together through the precinct's main entrance, the familiar sounds and smells of the front desk washing over Ethan. Ringing phones, brewing coffee, the subtle undercurrent of controlled chaos that defined police work. He spotted Olivia immediately, huddled with 2 forensic technicians near the evidence processing room. She looked up as he approached, but held up a finger. "Hold on. Decomposed samples are always problematic," one of the technicians was saying. "This new DNA testing requires high-quality genetic material. What we extracted from that car." He shook his head. 13 years underwater, contaminated with salt, rust, marine bacteria. We're talking weeks at minimum, possibly months. No way to expedite it? Olivia asked, not without compromising the results. The blood's there. We've confirmed that. But whether we can extract enough clean DNA for a match. The technician shrugged. Ethan felt his hope deflate. Without DNA confirmation, they couldn't even prove Laura was in the car when it went down. What about the casing? Olivia pressed. The second technician flipped through his notes. That's more definite. It's a .40 caliber, consistent with ammunition issued by the department in 1977. Same grain weight, same manufacturer. If Officer Hayes fired her weapon that night, that could be from it. Ethan closed his eyes, the implications washing over him. Laura's gun, Laura's blood, or someone else's. The uncertainty was maddening. He opened his eyes and saw Walter disappearing down the hallway towards his office, his gait slightly unsteady. Olivia finally broke away from the forensic team. Sorry about that. You okay? I need to talk to Walter about Thomas Miller. I ran into Thomas on Highway 101, right on Laura's old patrol route. Olivia's eyebrows rose. That's quite a coincidence. I thought so too. Ethan touched her shoulder. I'm going to see Walter. Talk later. I'll be in my office. I have something I want to show you. Ethan walked down the hall and knocked on Walter's door. It's Ethan. Come in. He pushed the door open to find Walter hastily closing a desk drawer, washing something that looked like pills down with a glass of water. Blood pressure medication, Walter explained without being asked. This case. He waved a hand vaguely. You shouldn't be here, Ethan. I was serious about taking time off. I tried, couldn't. Ethan watched as Walter sank into his chair, his face flushed. I need to ask you about Thomas Miller. Walter's expression tightened. What about him? I ran into him today on Laura's old patrol route. He was the night supervisor who signed the duty log when Laura disappeared. Well, someone had to sign it. Walter, something's bothering me. If Laura had been attacked that night, she would have reported it. She was too good a cop not to. But there's nothing after 8:15 p.m. Walter massaged his temples with both hands. That's why we always assumed she just walked away. No distress call, no reports of an attack, no witnesses who saw anything suspicious. But that doesn't fit with what we found today. The blood, the casing. You're wasting time and resources. Walter's voice turned sharp. Thomas Miller is a good cop. You want to start suspecting your brothers in arms based on what? A signature on a 13-year-old log. I'm not suspecting anyone. I just want the full picture. Walter stood abruptly, then grabbed the edge of his desk as he swayed. I can't. I need to check on the car transport, make sure it's properly delivered to the evidence yard. He headed for the door, but stumbled slightly. Ethan caught his arm, alarmed by how clammy Walter's skin felt through his shirt sleeve. Geez. Walter, are you sure you're okay? Maybe some coffee. Or, I'm fine. Walter pulled his arm away, trying to force a laugh. Just this damn diet my wife has me on. Low blood sugar and stress don't mix. He adjusted his tie with trembling hands. We need concrete leads, Ethan, not wild theories about fellow officers. Ethan watched him leave, noticing that Walter had forgotten to lock his office door and nearly walked into the glass door of the front desk. Something was definitely off. But before he could dwell on it, Olivia appeared beside him. My office, now. Once inside, Olivia closed the door and pulled a document from her desk. I was going through the archives, looking for other cases Laura worked in 1977. Found this, misfiled. Ethan took the paper, a witness statement, but something was wrong. No signature, no official stamp, just typed text describing a patrol car in a white van on Devil's Gulch Road the night Laura disappeared. Where was this? In a completely unrelated case. A residential burglary 3 months later. Olivia pulled out the burglary case file. See, nothing to do with Laura or that night. Ethan examined both documents. Why hide it, instead of destroying it? Olivia lowered her voice. Maybe someone wanted a fallback, a contingency story in case they needed it. Or maybe they just forgot to hit it. Either way, someone in this department knew more than they were saying. Ethan looked at the name on the witness statement. Tiffany Clark. Wait, that name. I'll pull the official file. Olivia grabbed another folder. There's a second statement from Tiffany Clark. Signed, stamped, completely official. Ethan quickly read it. In this version, Tiffany claimed to have seen nothing unusual that night. The same witness, 2 completely different stories. She has an address and phone number listed. Ethan checked his watch. Still local, in the Oakwood area. Olivia grabbed her jacket. I'm coming with you. Something tells me Ms. Clark has some explaining to do. They headed for the door. Ethan's mind raced. New leads, hidden documents, and conflicting testimonies. After 13 years, the carefully constructed wall of silence surrounding Laura's disappearance was finally beginning to crack. Olivia's unmarked Crown Victoria smelled of coffee and old case files as they pulled out of the precinct parking lot. Ethan held the witness statement in his hand, dialing Tiffany Clark's phone number. "Come on, answer," he muttered, listening to the endless rings. After the fourth ring, click. He snapped the phone shut. "Line's dead. Either disconnected or she's not answering." "The address is only 5 minutes away," Olivia said, turning onto Monterey Road. Oakwood was a quiet, working-class neighborhood. The houses got smaller as they drove. Neat post-war bungalows with tiny yards and American cars in the driveways. Olivia slowed, turning onto Oakwood Avenue, checking house numbers. "Should be on the right," Ethan said. 2847, 2851. "There. Wait. Look." Olivia gently pressed the brakes. Walter Thompson's official sedan was parked in front of a yellow house with peeling paint and an overgrown lawn. Walter himself stood on the porch. And he wasn't alone. A woman in her mid-40s stood facing him, her posture defensive, arms crossed over her chest. Olivia parked down the street, 3 houses away, killing the engine. Through the windshield, they watched Walter jab a finger at the woman, his face stern. Even from this distance, they could see the tension in his shoulders, the aggressive lean of his body. "What the hell is he doing here?" Ethan whispered. The woman, presumably Tiffany, shook her head repeatedly, backing away toward her door. Walter reached into his jacket and pulled out what looked like a thick envelope. He pressed it into her hands, leaning in to say something that made her flinch. "That doesn't look like an official interview," Olivia observed. Walter spun around abruptly and walked quickly to his car. They instinctively ducked as he drove past, though his attention seemed focused straight ahead. Once his taillights disappeared around the corner, they watched Tiffany retreat into her house, clutching the envelope. "Well," Olivia said, "this is getting interesting." They approached the house cautiously, noting mechanics' tools scattered on the porch, oil stains on the driveway. Ethan rapped sharply on the door. It opened almost immediately, Tiffany's face already contorted with irritation. "What else do you want?" She stopped when she saw 2 unfamiliar faces. Ethan noticed her eyes were red-rimmed from crying, and her hands trembled slightly. "Miss Clark, I'm Sergeant Ethan Hayes. This is Detective Olivia Carter. We're with the Bayview Police Department." Tiffany's expression shifted from anger to confusion, then to something akin to fear. "I don't. What is this about?" "We'd like to ask you some questions regarding a statement you made in 1977, Ethan said. "May we come in?" "I have nothing to say to you." She began to close the door. Olivia stepped forward. "We just saw you speaking with our chief, Walter Thompson. We're investigating the same case, and we really need to talk to you." Tiffany's face paled. She glanced from them to the documents in Ethan's hand. "I don't know what you mean." Ethan held up both witness statements, the hidden one and the official one. "We need you to explain this." For a long moment, Tiffany stared at the papers. Then her shoulders slumped in defeat. She rolled her eyes and stepped back. "Fine, come in, but this is the last time I'm talking about this." The living room was small but neat, adorned with photographs from better times. Tiffany gestured to a worn sofa and sat in an armchair opposite them, still clutching the envelope from Walter in her lap. "I don't know what you want me to say," she began. "The truth would be a good start," Olivia said softly. "We know you gave 2 different statements about the night Officer Laura Hayes disappeared. We need to know what you actually saw." Tiffany laughed bitterly. "The truth. You want the truth after 13 years. She rubbed her face with both hands. "I'm so tired. Tired of carrying this lie, this guilt." Ethan leaned forward. "Then tell us, help us understand." Tiffany stared at the envelope in her lap for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "I was driving to work that night, November 18th, 1977. I was a ranger at Glenwood State Park, working the evening shift. It was around 8:30 p.m. when I was driving on Devil's Gulch Road and saw a female officer pulling over a white van, alone." She paused, lost in the memory. "I didn't think anything of it. Cops pull people over all the time, right? So I drove on." "Can you describe the van?" Olivia asked, taking notes. "White, like I said, an older model, maybe early 70s, no windows in the back, the kind contractors use." Tiffany shifted in her seat. "Anyway, I got to work, did my rounds, but it was a slow night and I was bored, so around 10 p.m., I called my husband, asked him to come keep me company. She had the decency to look embarrassed. We met at the park. You know how it is. Young, married, looking for a thrill. The park's huge. Lots of secluded spots in the woods. We found a quiet place and... She waved a dismissive hand. You get the picture. What happened next? Ethan pressed. We heard something. A noise, like a scream. Maybe a shriek. Hard to tell with the wind and the trees. My husband wanted to investigate, but the park is huge. Sounds echo in the dark. It's weird. We walked around for about 15 minutes but didn't find anything. What time was this? Maybe 11:30, midnight. I wasn't really keeping track. Tiffany's voice turned bitter. When I was heading back to my post around 12:30 a.m., I saw that same white van leaving the park. The same one that was at the traffic stop. I was sure of it. Olivia and Ethan exchanged glances. You're sure it was the same van? Absolutely. It had a dent on the back panel on the right side, crescent-shaped. And you reported this? Tiffany's face crumpled. I tried. The next day, when I heard about the missing officer last seen on Highway 101, I went to the police station, gave a statement. But your chief, Thompson, he took over the case. She grabbed the envelope and shoved it at them. Take it. I'm done with this. All of it. Ethan opened the envelope. Inside were $3,000 in cash. He paid you to change your statement? Ethan stated it, not as a question. Tiffany nodded miserably. Said my first statement about the white van was vague, confusing. Said I needed to simplify it. Just say I didn't see anything. Made it sound like he was doing me a favor, helping me avoid complications. But that wasn't all, was it? Olivia's voice was soft but firm. No. Tears streamed down Tiffany's face. A week later, my supervisor at the park found out about me and my husband meeting there. Someone filed an anonymous complaint. I was fired for inappropriate conduct. I couldn't find another ranger job anywhere. Thompson made sure of it. So you kept quiet, Ethan said. What choice did I have? My father was sick. Medical bills. She gestured around the modest room. I took over my dad's auto repair shop, barely making ends meet, and every few months, Thompson would show up with another envelope. For your troubles, he'd say. For your continued discretion. Olivia stood. Miss Clark, we need you to come to the precinct. Give an official statement. Help us build a case against Walter. Tiffany shook her head violently. No. No way. You saw him here today. He knows something's up. Maybe I sound selfish, but I need to protect myself and my family. My father is still sick, still needs care, and my husband moved out of state, blaming me for the money. Thompson could destroy the little we have left, but your testimony won't be enough. Tiffany's voice was firm. You know it won't. He's a respected chief, over 20 years on the force. I'm nobody. A disgraced park ranger caught having sex with her husband on the job. Who's going to believe me? Ethan wanted to argue, but he understood her fear. He had seen how the system could crush those without power or connections. Find more evidence, Tiffany said. Build a case he can't talk his way out of. Then I'll testify, but not before. Back in the car, Ethan leaned back in his seat. She's right. Her word against Walters won't be enough. But now we know what to look for, Olivia said, starting the engine. A white van in the park that night. Walter covering it up. This is bigger than just Laura. Ethan sat up abruptly. Thomas Miller said he was patrolling the Glenwood area today, the same park Tiffany worked at. That can't be a coincidence. Olivia's eyes gleamed with determination. Then let's go see what Officer Miller is really up to. Glenwood State Park stretched before them, a vast expanse of coastal hills and redwood groves that climbed from the Pacific Ocean into the Santa Cruz Mountains. Olivia turned into the main parking lot, the late afternoon sun filtering through the eucalyptus trees that lined the entrance. There, Ethan said sharply, Walter's car. The chief's sedan was parked near the ranger station, and next to it, the black and white patrol car Ethan had seen that morning. He checked the license plate to be sure. It's Thomas Miller's car. The same one from this morning. Olivia scanned the parking lot. We need cover. Don't want them to spot us. She maneuvered the Crown Victoria into a spot between a van and a pickup truck, partially obscured by overhanging branches. From here, they had a clear view of both vehicles while remaining out of sight. Ethan grabbed a park map from the visitor's rack as they exited the car. A network of trails crisscrossed thousands of acres. Hazelnut Trail, Whalers Ranch Road, Middle Peak. Finding anything in this wilderness would be like searching for a specific grain of sand on a beach. We can't just wander around hoping. Ethan began, but Olivia put a finger to her lips. She pointed through the trees. Two figures emerged from a trail 50 yards away. Walter Thompson, still in his suit despite the outdoor setting, and Thomas Miller in his San Mateo County uniform. Thomas carried a shovel and a heavy duffel bag. Walter clutched a large black plastic bag, the kind used for construction debris. They moved purposefully towards their cars. Walter's face was flushed with exertion and irritation, though he spoke in a low voice. Ethan and Olivia crept closer, using the tree line for cover. "I told you this was unnecessary," Thomas was saying. Walter opened his trunk and carefully placed the plastic bag into a wooden box. "Unnecessary? You heard Hayes on the news this morning? They found the car, Thomas." "Damn it, the car." Thomas loaded his shovel and duffel bag into his patrol car. "So what? It's been 13 years. There's nothing there." "There's blood." Walter's voice was tight with suppressed panic. "Casings. And this new DNA testing they have now. Do you have any idea how accurate it is? The body's been in the ground for 13 years, Walter. It's probably just bones by now. Nobody's going to find it on Middle Peak. It's a hiking trail 2 miles into the wilderness. Who's going to look there?" Walter transferred the box from his trunk to Thomas's trunk, grunting with effort. Ethan noticed how carefully he handled it, despite his agitation. "Are you dense?" Walter slapped Thomas on the back of the head. "If they confirm the blood in the car is Laura's, what do you think happens next? They'll want the body. They'll start questioning everyone again. That Clark woman, the park rangers we paid to keep quiet. One of them talks, and we're done." Thomas rubbed his head, scowling. "Fine, but where am I supposed to put it? I can't drive around with human remains in my trunk. Somewhere safe, somewhere even I don't know about. So if anything goes wrong, I can pass a polygraph." Thomas thought for a moment. "What about a place near those people? You know, our business partners. If anyone ever gets close, the suspicion falls on them, not us." For the first time, Walter almost smiled. "You're finally thinking. Just do it. And Thomas, make sure no one sees you." They slammed their trunks shut. Walter got into his sedan, and Thomas settled into his patrol car. Ethan and Olivia retreated deeper into the trees as both vehicles started. Walter's car turned left out of the park entrance, heading back towards town. Thomas's patrol car turned right, heading north on the coastal route. They ran back to their car, Olivia in the driver's seat before Ethan had fully closed his door. She waited until Thomas had a 30-second lead before pulling out. "Thank God we didn't have to hike Middle Peak," Olivia muttered, keeping Thomas's patrol car in sight while maintaining her distance. 2 miles into the wilderness. "We'd have been searching for hours." "That has to be Laura in that bag," Ethan said, his voice tight with emotion. 13 years, she was out there alone. "We don't know for sure," Olivia cautioned, though her tone suggested she believed it too. "But whatever's in that box, Walter and Thomas are desperate to hide it." They followed Thomas north on Highway 1, past Devil's Gulch Road, where it had all begun just hours earlier. Ethan watched the patrol car ahead, his mind racing. "Those people," Thomas had said. "Business partners. What kind of business would a corrupt cop have with partners worth protecting?" At the intersection with Highway 92, Walter's prediction came true. His sedan turned inland, heading back towards Bayview. Thomas continued north. "He's really going to do it," Olivia said. "Transport a body in broad daylight in a police car. They've gotten away with it for 13 years, Ethan replied. "It's a quiet old town. Why would they think today would be any different?" 30 minutes into following Thomas's patrol car north along the coast, Olivia observed, "We're heading into Sharp Park territory." Ethan leaned forward, spotting a familiar industrial complex in the distance. There, the water treatment plant. He's turning in. The Sharp Park water treatment plant was a sprawling complex of concrete buildings and cylindrical tanks, surrounded by chain-link fencing and warning signs. Thomas's patrol car didn't head for the main entrance, but instead turned onto a service road at the back of the facility. Olivia pulled off the main road, finding cover behind a cluster of storage sheds that gave them a clear view of Thomas's movements. Through the fence, they watched him park in a secluded spot near a heavily overgrown area, an untended field bordering the facility's back perimeter. "He's moving," Ethan said. Thomas got out of his car and opened the trunk. He removed the wooden box containing the plastic bag, grabbed the shovel, and headed into the tall grass. He moved purposefully, but kept glancing over his shoulder. "Come on," Olivia whispered. "Stay low." They slipped out of the car and approached the fence, using industrial equipment and overgrown bushes for cover. Thomas didn't go far into the vegetation. about 30 yards from his car. They had a clear view as he began to dig. The shovel bit into the earth with rhythmic thuds. Thomas worked efficiently, years of physical labor evident in his movements. Within 10 minutes, he had dug a hole roughly 3 feet deep and 4 feet long. Ethan's stomach clenched as Thomas opened the box and emptied the black plastic bag into the hole. The contents tumbled out, clearly human remains, though decomposed from years of burial. Bones, deteriorated fabric, and what might have been hair fell into the fresh grave. Then Thomas did something that made Ethan's blood run cold. He reached into the hole and pulled something out, a small bone, perhaps a finger, and slipped it into his pocket. A trophy. Thomas began to fill the hole, tamping down the earth with his boots. After a few minutes, he scattered the excess soil and covered the spot with grass and debris. To a casual observer, the ground looked undisturbed. They retreated back to their car as Thomas loaded his equipment back into the trunk. Ethan reached for the radio, but Olivia grabbed his arm. "Wait," she said. "Remember what he told Walter? Something about putting it near those people, so suspicion would fall on them. Let's see where he goes." Ethan nodded reluctantly. They needed the full picture, not just Thomas with a shovel. Thomas brushed the dirt from his uniform and got back into his patrol car. But instead of leaving the facility, he drove through an internal access gate, flashing his credentials to a bored-looking security guard. "He has access," Olivia murmured. "How long has this been going on?" They watched through binoculars as Thomas's car pulled up to what looked like a derelict generator shed at the far end of the complex. The building looked like it hadn't been maintained in years, rusted walls, broken windows boarded up with plywood. Thomas disappeared inside. 5 minutes passed. Then he emerged, carrying a rectangular package wrapped in brown paper. The size and shape were instantly familiar to any narcotics officer. "Son of a bitch," Ethan breathed. "Drugs?" "He's picking up drugs." Olivia was already on the radio, speaking quietly. "Dispatch, this is Detective Carter. I need you to quietly check the Sharp Park water treatment plant. Any reports, complaints, unusual activity?" As they waited for Dispatch's reply, movement near the generator shed caught their attention. 2 men emerged, and between them, 2 young women, teenagers by the look of them, dressed in cheap clothing and looking terrified. The men pushed the girls towards Thomas, who roughly grabbed their arms and led them to his patrol car, shoving them into the back seat. "That's it," Ethan said. "We need backup now." Olivia was already on the radio. "Dispatch, we have a 1099 at the Sharp Park water treatment plant. Officer involved in possible human trafficking and narcotics. Requesting immediate SWAT response. Suspect is Deputy Thomas Miller, San Mateo County. We also need units to detain Chief Walter Thompson at Bayview Station. He's involved." "Copy that, Detective. Units en route." ETA 5 minutes. They continued to watch Thomas, who was now engaged in an animated conversation with the men near the shed. The casual nature of the interaction suggested this wasn't their first transaction. Then, from deeper within the facility, a white van emerged, old, nondescript, no rear windows. Ethan's pulse quickened. It was the exact description Tiffany Clark had given. Thomas returned to his patrol car and positioned it in front of the van, clearly preparing to escort it out of the facility, using his police vehicle to provide cover for a criminal operation. The audacity of it made Ethan clench his fists. "They've been doing this for years," Olivia said quietly. "Look how routine it is. No nervousness, no rush, just business as usual." The sound of approaching sirens broke the late afternoon quiet. A swarm of patrol cars and a SWAT van converged on the main gate of the facility. The security guard, faced with the overwhelming police presence, had no choice but to open the barrier. Thomas and the van driver simultaneously realized their predicament. Both vehicles lurched forward, attempting to reach an alternate exit. Olivia put the car in gear, joining the pursuit with the other units. The van driver lost his nerve first, slamming on his brakes and putting his hands up. Thomas tried to bluff, pulling his patrol car to a stop and stepping out with feigned nonchalance. "What's going on here?" he yelled, trying to project authoritative confusion. "I didn't receive any notification of an operation. I was just checking this facility as part of my patrol." Olivia was already out of the car, handcuffs in hand. "That's enough, Thomas. We saw everything. This is a misunderstanding," Thomas protested as Olivia cuffed him. "These girls in my car, they were buying drugs. See?" He gestured desperately to the brown package on the front seat. "I was bringing them in." Ethan stepped closer. "You're a great storyteller, Thomas. Too bad we saw you burying human remains 30 minutes ago. Laura's, most likely. And then coming here to pick up your drug shipment and probably your monthly bonus of trafficked girls. Thomas's face went ashen. I don't know what you're talking about. This is all a mistake. The only mistake was yours, Olivia said, reading him his rights as she led him to a patrol car. Meanwhile, the SWAT team had breached the generator shed. Ethan and Olivia approached as officers led out handcuffed suspects, hardened men who exuded violence even in custody. Inside, the shed immediately revealed its true purpose. A staircase led down to a basement that reeked of chemicals. The meth lab was extensive: glass equipment, heating elements, vats of precursors, professional-grade gear capable of producing vast quantities. In a side room, they found more victims. Women ranging from teenagers to their 30s, all bearing signs of confinement and abuse. A female officer spoke quietly to them in Spanish, reassuring them and ensuring their safety. One of the older women, braver than the rest, spoke up. We work in the lab, packaging, cleaning. But the young ones, she pointed to the teenagers, they are kept for new clients, new partners, a monthly reward for the police who help them. Ethan had to step outside, fighting back nausea. This was beyond corruption. This was evil, systematic, and protected by the very people sworn to serve. Medical teams arrived, carefully escorting the victims to ambulances. Prisoner transports began to fill with suspects. Evidence teams swarmed the lab, documenting everything. We need to find those remains, Ethan told Olivia, before anyone else interferes. They found another officer to accompany them and drove back to where Thomas had dug his hasty grave. The disturbed earth was still evident to trained eyes. Using Thomas's discarded shovel, they carefully exhumed the remains, transferring them to an evidence bag with the respect they deserved. Laura, Ethan whispered. After 13 years, they had found her. Back at their car, with the evidence secured, Ethan remembered another crucial detail. We need Tiffany Clark. Her testimony ties all of this together. Olivia was already dialing. When Tiffany answered, Olivia's voice was firm but kind. Miss Clark, this is Detective Carter. We've arrested Thomas Miller and have evidence against Walter Thompson. Several officers are involved. It's time to make good on your promise. There was a long pause. Then, thank God. Yes, I'll come in. We're sending a unit to safely escort you to the precinct, Olivia assured her. Ethan grabbed the radio. Dispatch, I need a unit to 2855 Oakwood Avenue, Bayview. Protective escort for a witness. The water treatment plant now resembled a war zone. Police vehicles everywhere. Suspects in custody, victims receiving aid. They had uncovered something monstrous, hidden in plain sight, protected by badges and public trust. Let's head back, Olivia said. Time for a serious talk with Walter Thompson. The Bayview Police Department was a scene of controlled chaos. Suspects from the water treatment plant were being processed, their wrists cuffed, faces grim. Officers moved with practiced efficiency, handling evidence, writing reports, coordinating with multiple agencies. The sheer scale of what they had uncovered was still sinking in. Ethan and Olivia turned over their evidence to the property clerk. The bag of remains, Thomas's shovel, photographs from both scenes. Each item was meticulously logged, the chain of custody preserved. Interrogation room 2, a uniformed officer told them. Thompson's in there already. The captain wants both of you to handle it. Through the one-way mirror, Walter Thompson looked smaller than Ethan had ever seen him. The confident chief was gone, replaced by a sweating, handcuffed man whose eyes darted nervously around the room. Olivia took the lead, settling into a chair opposite Walter while Ethan sat quietly beside her, studying the man he had trusted for 2 decades. This interrogation is being recorded, Olivia began, activating a voice recorder. Present are Detective Olivia Carter, Sergeant Ethan Hayes, and Chief Walter Thompson. Mr. Thompson, you have been read your rights. This is a mistake, Walter said, but there was no conviction in his voice. Whatever you think you saw, we saw you hand money to Tiffany Clark this afternoon, Olivia interrupted calmly. We saw you and Thomas Miller move human remains from Glenwood State Park. We followed Thomas to a meth lab where he was picking up drugs and trafficking women. Ms. Clark has given a full statement about how you paid her to change her testimony 13 years ago. Walter's face cycled through several shades of pale. You followed us from the park to the treatment plant, Ethan confirmed. We saw everything, Walter. Silence hung in the air between them. Walter's breathing grew labored, his shirt darkening with sweat. What happened in 1977? Ethan asked quietly. What happened to my wife? Walter stared at the table for a long time. When he finally looked up, something broke in his eyes. All right, he said. You know it all anyway. I'm tired of these 13 years of looking over my shoulder, waiting for this day. He took a ragged breath. My best shot now is a deal with the DA, so here it is. All of it. Olivia leaned forward, pen poised over her notepad. Laura pulled over the van that night, November 18th, 1977. A routine. The traffic stop happened near the old industrial docks in Monterey Bay, not far from Bayview. Unbeknownst to her, that van was transporting a shipment of meth from the water treatment plant to the docks for distribution. Ethan's hands clenched under the table, but he remained silent. The driver panicked. A low-level courier, probably high on his own product. He shot her through the passenger window, hitting her in the shoulder, spinning her around. She was wounded, bleeding, but not dead. And they called you? Olivia asked. It wasn't a question, Walter nodded wearily. I was their man on the inside. Had been for 2 years. They paid well, and I told myself I was just looking the other way, not really involved. But when they called that night, he rubbed his face. I sent Thomas, told him to handle it before backup could arrive at her last location. Thomas killed her, Ethan said hoarsely. No, Walter met his gaze. I did. Thomas wanted to call an ambulance, try to save her, but she'd seen the van, seen the driver. She could identify them, testify. So I. His voice broke. I finished what the courier started. Used her own weapon. That's why the casing matched department ammunition. Silence filled the interrogation room, broken only by the hum of the recording equipment. We destroyed her radio and dash cam, Walter continued, each word seeming to age him. Buried her body in Glenwood State Park, on the Middle Peak Trail, 2 miles in, where nobody ever goes. The cartel guys took her patrol car to Devil's Slide, pushed it into the ocean. The storm that week helped cover it up. The blood in the trunk? Olivia asked. From the transfer, we wrapped her in plastic. He shrugged helplessly. Ethan found his voice. All these years? The monthly payments weren't just money. No, Walter admitted. Drugs for some of the guys who used, girls for entertainment. The operation grew over the years. More cops got involved. Names? Olivia demanded. Walter laughed bitterly. You want names? This department wouldn't have enough staff left if I gave you all of them. As the names tumbled out, Ethan felt sick to his stomach. The corruption was deeper than he could have imagined. No wonder Laura's disappearance had never been solved. Half the department was actively covering it up. I need some air, Ethan said sharply, standing up. Olivia looked at him with concern but nodded. Take your time. We're not done yet. Ethan stumbled into the hallway, his legs unsteady. The weight of 13 years of lies, of sleeping next to an empty pillow, of not knowing if Laura had abandoned him or died, crashed down on him all at once. Ethan. He looked up and saw Tiffany Clark, sitting on a bench near the interrogation rooms, her hands clasped nervously in her lap. Miss Clark, he walked over and sat beside her. Thank you for coming in. I gave my statement, she said quietly. Told them everything about that night, about Walter's threats and the payoffs. Everything. She turned to him, tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry. It's not fair what happened to you, to Laura, to everyone. I know I deserve to be prosecuted. I took their money, kept their secrets. Ethan studied her haggard face, seeing the burden she had carried. You were threatened into silence. You were blackmailed. The district attorney will take that into account. But you came forward when it mattered, Ethan interrupted gently. Your testimony helped us break this case open. That means something. Maybe immunity, maybe a plea deal. But either way, he met her gaze. I'm grateful. Laura can finally rest in peace because you found the courage to speak up. They shared a brief, awkward hug. Two people connected by tragedy, finding a moment of solace. Sergeant Hayes. A forensic technician appeared in the doorway. Can you come with me? We need you to identify something. Ethan excused himself and followed the technician into the evidence room. Tables lined the walls, covered with tagged items from today's raids. The technician led him to a smaller table where the remains were neatly laid out. We'll send everything to the state lab for DNA testing, the technician explained, pulling on latex gloves. But we found this with the remains. He held up a small evidence bag. Inside was a pendant on a thin chain, tarnished but intact. Ethan recognized it instantly, the platinum heart Laura had worn every day of their marriage. With trembling hands, Ethan took the bag. Through the plastic, he felt the weight of the metal, the familiar shape. He flipped it over, and engraved on the back in elegant script were the words, "Ethan and Laura forever." The tears came then, 13 years of grief pouring out in the sterile evidence room. The pendant made it real in a way that even finding her body hadn't. It was Laura's, worn against her skin, cherished. She hadn't abandoned him. She had been stolen from him. The technician respectfully stepped back, giving him space to grieve. After a few minutes, Ethan wiped his eyes and returned to the evidence table. Among the bones, he noticed one that was tagged separately. "We found this in Thomas Miller's pocket," the technician explained. "A finger bone. He took it as some kind of trophy." "Sick bastards," Ethan muttered. These men wore badges, took oaths. They betrayed everything law enforcement stood for. He gently touched the bag of bones. "I finally found you, Laura. Now you can rest in peace." "Sergeant," the technician said quietly. "What you did today, you saved those women at the facility. They're at Bayview General now, getting treatment. Their lives matter too." Ethan nodded, drawing strength from that truth. Laura was gone, but others had been saved. He checked the evidence in for DNA testing and returned to the hallway. Olivia had just emerged from the interrogation room, looking exhausted but satisfied. "He gave us everything," she said. "Names, dates, connections, contacts. This is going to tear the department apart." "Good," Ethan said firmly. "It needs to be torn apart and rebuilt, cleansed." They stood together in the hallway, watching new suspects being processed, internal affairs officers arriving to begin their investigation, the machinery of justice grinding forward. "It's going to be a long fight," Olivia observed. "The courts, the investigations, rooting out every corrupt cop Walter named. The department will never be the same." "It shouldn't be," Ethan replied. "Not after this." Olivia checked her watch. "The victims from the facility, we should go visit them too. Get their statements, but also—" She paused. "Let them know they're safe now, that they're being cared for." Ethan nodded. "Let's go." As they walked towards the booking office, Ethan reflected on what they had uncovered. Evil had thrived among them because good people stayed silent, because those entrusted with power abused it for personal gain. Laura had died simply for doing her job, for pulling over the wrong vehicle at the wrong time. But the truth, like her patrol car, always surfaced eventually. The storm that revealed the evidence wasn't just meteorological. It was a storm of conscience in people like Tiffany, a storm of determination in officers like Olivia, a storm of justice, demanding accountability for long-hidden sins. The badge meant something. It had to mean something. And for Laura, for the women they saved today, for the community that trusted them, they would make sure it found its true meaning again.